All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Common Solution Workshop. If you're here for the first time, double welcome. Um, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna, ooh, shoot. Give me 1 second. Something just disappeared on me. Give me 1 second. All right, back to regular scheduled program. A little technology problem there. So I'm gonna start by talking about this. Is that every life form on this planet strives to be free. And there's a great quote by Charles Dickens. He says, "I only want to be free like the butterfly." And it's a very interesting analogy there, is that to be free like the butterfly. And you see that the life of a caterpillar closely mirrors the process of spiritual transformation. The caterpillar goes into its cocoon. It actually dissolves into a pool of atoms. It lets go of its original form and transforms into something totally unrecognizable. And that's the butterfly. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly is absolute proof that something can go into darkness and become something even more beautiful. If we just let go, if we just let it do so. We have to let the process do it. It shows that anyone has the possibility to be reborn. The butterfly is kind of like, I like to throw into the theme tonight, because we're going to discuss 5, 6, and 7, which is all about being reconstructed into something totally different. And for us, rather than retreating into a cocoon after we've done our inventory with another, we retreat to a place to be quiet for some time, an hour. And just like the butterfly, we most likely will return, even if we don't see it right away, to the outer world. Does the butterfly know that it's a butterfly when it comes out of the cocoon? It might still think it's a caterpillar still. Who knows? But we can come out so unrecognizable out of the 5, 6, and 7, and we're brought back to life, to rejoin life, reborn, transformed, ready to fly, ready to make amends. All we have to do is continue to practice these principles as a way of life, like, so to speak, what we learned inside the cocoon, and bring it to the outside world. For a whole life, we wanted to bring all this stuff in the outside world to help people, and it's always been within us. And the reason we connect to God so well in step 11 is because we have turned into something completely different than we used to be, the image and likeness of our Creator. And because of that, people see us and they say, "I want what he has, I want what she has." Every breathing moment is a chance to let go of what has always defined you, and that control. And every moment is a chance to reinvent ourselves. That's what I'm saying. Every moment we have that chance, and that's the powerful thing. I want to show you guys a really cool picture, and someone sent this to me years ago when I was struggling a little bit with what I was hearing in meetings sometimes. And it says, you cannot talk butterfly language to a caterpillar or caterpillar people. Why? Because the caterpillar wouldn't understand. We have no clue what you're talking about. And my job, is not to talk deep about how it feels to do 5, 6, and 7. Some of you have experienced those steps, some of you have not. The question is, what is the butterfly saying to the caterpillar? He's telling him the precise directions how to get out of the cocoon, right? And that is what we're doing tonight, precise directions, how to do 5, 6, and 7. Why do we need precise directions? Because these steps are very, misinterpreted, very misleading at times. Especially if it's the caterpillar person talking, because I believe a lot of people relapse because they're not given proper guidance of 5, 6, and 7. If the directions aren't right, we break the recipe, we break the chain that is going. I'm not saying that my way is the right way or anything like that. All I have is my experience. I'm gonna close that down. So all my workshops I've done so far, this is my favorite because we get to talk about the casting out steps, the 3 steps of utopia. I like to call them 5, 6, and 7. 3 steps that you do in one powerful, life-changing day, and a day where the truth slaps us in the face. Awareness can change, maybe some tears flow, miracles, forgiveness might occur, pain might melt away. Maybe we become whole, the awakening begins, or we become aware the awakening has already started. But because within these steps, we come face to face, whatever we call God, whatever we call that. And we learned on page 55 a few weeks back when we did step 2 that God is deep down within us. And we found out later on there's some obstacles there. And these are the steps to strip away those obstacles. Within us, we can be one with God. I've been in both sides, of course, of the 5, 6, and 7, doing my own, hearing lots of 5th steps. I've done a lot of 5, 6, and 7s and step 10, but seeing a person change right in front of you is so powerful. But seeing them a few hours later, after they had taken in everything they've done, that's the stuff miracles are made of. That's why I say, man, this is a cool freaking program. I'm going to put up another slide. All right. Step 5. Admit to God, to ourselves, and other human being, the exact natures of our wrongs. So we're not simply admitting our wrongs. We've done that through our lives. We've been always admitted our wrongs somewhere to us or someone else. What we're doing here is admitting the exact natures of our wrongs. That's way deeper than we've ever gone before. Look at those other words, though. Admitting, let's declare something is true. So it's an honesty thing, but exact. It's a very, very important word. Completely correct and accurate, right? What I like to say, with accordance to facts. And it's in a fact, exact is not a guess or estimate, but the nature is a powerful word in here. Essential characteristics by which something is recognized, right? The essential characteristics by which something is recognized. And we know wrongs are errors that are unjust, dishonest, immoral, improper. So like I said, we've admitted our wrongs before, but not the exact nature of our wrongs. We're getting to the exact natures of why we are unjust, dishonest, improper, and immoral at times. The exact natures of our wrongs, we find out, are those misdirected instincts, the pride, the self-esteem, the sex relations, personal relations, the material, but then also self-seeking, dishonest, and frightened. That's why we have this inventory format. But step 5 is the opportunity for a person to discover the exact natures of their wrongs, to really know the truth and gain a new awareness. So it brings our instincts from darkness to light. And when that awareness happens, change begins. So one thing that I always like to point out, again, you hear this a lot. Step 5 is about patterns or about feelings. And how, or I've heard step 5 is so we learn how to handle it differently the next time. That's therapeutic stuff. You can do that, just don't call it, the AA steps or the steps out of the big book, call it something else. It's fine. But our job is to improve, the person hearing the steps, the fifth step is to improve the information, they have gathered by pointing out something maybe they're not seeing. Don't you see pride in there? Don't you see self-esteem in there? Or selfishness? Maybe they missed out on step 4 or something in there. Maybe they wrote down one resentment and you point out to them it's actually 5 different resentments, or they're too vague. But the main job of a person hearing a fifth step is 5 things: listen, 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 listen. If we're talking, if the sponsor is talking more than the sponsee, that's not a fifth step. And we want them to see the exact natures of their wrongs, their defects, of character, or shortcomings. And it's not about how long it lasts. It could be 2 hours, could be 20 hours. And our job is not to cut it off or play God during it, because that person, the reason we don't want to cut it off, because that person's gonna have a breaking point when they see what they cannot see. They see they're driven by pride, self-esteem, sex conduct, all that stuff, leading them into selfishness. It is in our nature to always blame others. In step 5, we see that we are to blame. It breaks the victim mode. You become aware that no one else is responsible for your suffering except for you. And that's why we get a big a new understanding. And the one thing I like to point out too is, confessions, it's been known for, hundreds of thousands of years, I'll say, that confession has a spiritual power. It acknowledges of facts the person wants to not talk about. And we want to hold on to things, keep things secret, keep things tucked away. But by bringing them in the light, it decreases this amount of pent up energy inside of us. We feel relaxed. But the exact truth though, step 5 is it's not a confession. It's more than confession. If step 5 was a confession, it would just be who I resent and why. That's a confession. But when you bring the 3rd and 4th column into it, the exactness of our wrongs is more than a confession. It pinpoints the driving forces of your wrongs. Instead of looking at the faults of others, we're looking at our faults. Again, it's natural for us to blame others. Where are we to blame? Our mistakes. So I want to talk about really quick is who should hear our story? Who should, and one thing I've learned in the world of recovery, there's a lot of watches that aren't ticking. And we need to find a watch that's ticking. And we want that person that knows the process, and perhaps, is recovered, the obsession's gone, and firmly walks with God. And someone who is walking not just talking the talk, but walks the walk. Maybe doesn't even talk at all. Maybe just walks the walk. And if I were to get a sponsor today after what I know after 22 years, and it's not about time, but this is what I would look for is a person that knows the obsession and allergy from actual experience, understands that God's within, understands the instincts, does regular inventory, and has made their most difficult amends. Because there's so much more you could add to it, but that just sums it up. And the big book mentions more stuff to it, like keeping a confidence, not changing the plan, the first 100's plan. So let's go to page 75. And we're going to read, just like the other workshops, we're going to read tidbits out of this and try to make sense of it. So page 75, it says, when we decide who is to hear our story, here's the condition. We waste no time. There's a time frame there, right? It shows the urgency of this. We have written an inventory and prepared for a long talk. It's not a 2-hour, a 45-minute talk in the back of the Starbucks somewhere. We explained to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. So for what we're about to do, go to page 72. And this is a lot of powerful information here. So top of 72. what we're about to do. We're trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and discover the obstacles in our path. So attitude is one's viewpoint or feeling towards something that, it's a like or dislike, positive, negative. It doesn't say we're trying to get a better attitude with God. It says new attitude with God, or improve our attitude with God. We got the relationship with God, and that we also need a new relationship with God. What does that mean? What if I need a new relationship with God? What does that say about my old one? It wasn't working. It says that, tells us that very well on page 93. If you walk in here with a strong aspect of God, you could not apply it, otherwise you wouldn't have drank. But new means coming into being for the first time, never existing before, never seen, touched, smell, like a new, like I was thinking that new car, like you get a new car, has that smell, and everything about it is like, it reeks of new, or a new house. But spiritual awakening is about change. And by getting a new attitude with God, we get a new relationship with God. It just flows that way. But if we keep the same attitude, the same relationship with God, do we change? No, we stay the same. And, of course, in step 11, we're going to improve our relationship with God. So I'm going to improve the new relationship with God. Doesn't it say change in religion if you're religious or anything like that? But before, we need a new attitude and a new relationship. That's what we need. And, if you come in here and you dance around with your old one, I see it happen a lot. Guys want to preach about their deities and their books and stuff, their religious stuff. And I'm going to walk, if you're walking up with your God like that, and it's not different by the time you get to the steps, you're probably going to get drunk. Because it's still the old one, it's an old relationship. Look what else it says. Then discover the obstacle on our path, right? Discover is a spiritual word. It means to become aware of something previously not known. And that leads to a new awareness, right? A new awareness. An obstacle is anything that stands between you and progress. In our case, between us and God. Let me give you an analogy here. Let's just say Bob and I, are hiking to the top of Mount Everest, and we come to a passageway of boulders blocking our path. And we can go around it, but that will take us way off the path to the summit because it's not on the map. We probably get lost. We can avoid them by turning around and going home, meaning we don't reach the summit. That was our dream. But if we want to get to the top of Mount Everest, the obstacle in the road and the path has to be removed. The same thing here. If you want freedom, the obstacles must be removed. But these obstacles aren't standing between us and Mount Everest. They're standing between us and God. And we call it spiritual malady. It also says the obstacles in our path. A path is that, it's a well-worn way. It's a way of access to destination. To go deeper provides access to a source. The condition is first you must find the mysterious path so you can find the source. So many I've heard want to find the source, and before they find the path, and it doesn't make sense. But our path that we use is steps, and then we can overcome the malady. So why are we doing this? Why do we have to do it? That's the other question they asked at the bottom of 72. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome our drinking. Secrets keep us sick, right? So when we finish step 5, it's been a long day, but it's been at some point, the first maybe page of resentments, and we it takes slower for the guy to see the flow, but then they start to get it, and it starts to speed up. And it always has an interesting ending to it. That's why, we don't play God. and try to move things out of the way, because this is, look at these promises. We pocket our pride. Remember what pride is. It's that instinct of what others think of us. How many decisions have you made based on what others thought of you, what you think others think of you? Now we don't put it away, our pride, we pocket it. You know, what would life be like without that instinct making your decisions for you? So we pocket our pride and go to it illuminating. Illuminating means shining a light on something. Every twisted character, that's what we do in the fifth step. Every twisted character of our past, shining a light on it. Once we take in a step, and there's a condition, withholding nothing. Look at the promise, we are delighted. So if I withhold nothing, I'm delighted. What if I hold something? I'm not, right? And delighted is a very powerful word. You know, it means powered. It's a power response. You know, it's a form of like happiness. Buddhists use it a lot, but also take off the DE and it says lighted. See the light, right? We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone for peace and ease, meaning I can be by myself and never feel alone again. Our fears fall from us. No more depth and weight. No more weight to them. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. So our belief in God, just acknowledging that there's a God, you know, or might be a God, or willingness to believe in a God, turns into knowing, where we talk about in step 2, because we begin to experience God. Anything in life you know is from experience. Anything you've never experienced is a theory or a belief. You know, remember, belief, you don't need proof. Experience, you need proof. So we begin to have a spiritual experience because we're experiencing God. The feeling of the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Beautiful. Broad highway is described very beautifully on page 46. And it's going to describe, I believe it's the broad highway. And it says to us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all inclusive, never exclusive or forbidden to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. I used to love what Sandy Beach used to say. If this room was the world of the spirit and there's a doorway, anyone can enter, but you got to leave your world at the door. You got to leave your stuff at the door to enter. You know, and go to page 55. It talks more about the broad highway. After he talks about God being within, mentions the bottom 55. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, encourages you, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself. We do that with 429. If you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. The fifth step promises tell us, you know, we have arrived there. They said, come on, do this, you can join us. Guess where we're at. If you have a 12 and 12, I'm going to go to page 57 of the 12 and 12, because I love the way it flows with these promises. So perfect. I'll give you guys a minute to get there. 12 and 12. If you don't have one, it's no big deal. Page 57. What are we likely to receive from step 5? For one thing, we shall get rid of the terrible sense of isolation we've always had. Almost without exception, alcoholics are tortured by loneliness. Even before drinking got bad and people began to cut us off, nearly all of us suffered the feeling that we didn't quite belong. Either we were shy and dared not draw near others, or we were apt to be noisy goodfellows, craving attention and companionship, but never getting it to at least our way of thinking. Does that sound familiar? There was always some serious barrier we could never surmount and understand. It was as if we were actors, and he mentions actors again, actors on stage, suddenly realizing they did not know a single line of our parts. That's one reason why we love alcohol so well. The next paragraph down. When we reach AA for the first time, we walk in the doors. We still, in our lives, we still want people who seem to understand. The sense of belonging was tremendously exciting. So our social instinct is fulfilled when we first walk in AA. I'm welcome. You feel great, right? We thought the isolation problem had been solved. But look at this. Here's why we do the steps. What we soon discovered, while we weren't alone anymore in a social sense, we still suffered many of the age-old pangs of ancient apartness. Until we had talked with complete candor of our conflicts and had listened to someone else do the same thing with it's the same thing, we still didn't quite belong. Step 5 was the answer. It was the beginning of true kinship with man and God. When I think of kinship, I think of companionship, which I believe is a result of proper use of the social instinct. Companionship is when you feel a sense of closeness and connected to somebody, right? But it said not just kinship with others, kinship with God, connected to God, one with God. How do I say one with God once I get there? 10, 11, 12. But it also says the most important thing, until we talked with complete candor of our conflicts, our 5th step with our sponsor, and then listen to someone do the same thing with us, we still didn't quite belong. Meaning, it is as important to hear another's 5th steps as is to do our own. My hands, my 2 fists here, they're both the same size. There's no difference, right? And that's what I'm saying there. Meaning, it's as important. You know, there's no difference between my 5th step and the one I'm going to hear. Does that make sense? There's no difference. And if I don't sponsor ever, I'm not going to have that kinship with God, and I'm fully not going to understand the steps. Saint Francis of Assisi, who I love, and we've heard a lot of his prayers and stuff. This is a quote. First, do what is necessary. Then do what is impossible. Before long, you will find yourself doing the impossible. What he's saying there is, first do what's necessary, step 4. Then do what is possible, step 5. Before long, you will find yourself doing the impossible, step 6. Letting go. Letting go is the impossible. Letting go of lifelong resentments, lifelong fears, lifelong guilt. If I'm still having the same feelings, but different towards different people, but at different people, the same anger and frustrations, and it's a pattern almost like, right? You know, I haven't truly let go. Page 64, if you go to page 64, and this is very interesting what it says here. Once we did this on step 3, I'm going to do it again tonight, this part, where it says top 64. I call it 3rd step warning, but now it makes even more sense. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort. That's 4, to face, step 5, and be rid of, step 6, the things in ourselves that are blocking us. And all through this book, it talks about ridding of and removing things. I mean, it talks about having huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, casting them to one side. So it tells me these are the casting out steps. It talks about that when we held on to our old ideas, the result was nil until what? We let go absolutely. We hear that read a million times. And you hear at meetings after step 6, you're like, oh, you know, it talks about getting rid of selfishness, or it kills us, right? And there's no way of getting rid of it without God's aid, right? Or, you know, also mentions in this book about removing our fear so God can direct our attention to what he would have us be. It talks about putting our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory, casting them out, right? It's all about removal, right? It talks about when selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, ask God to remove them at once. You know, we cannot let go in our own power something, you know, we can do in power. Step 6 is the pinnacle step because it's the essence of awakening. I said this before, and I know I'll say it again. The steps are not about gaining anything, they're about losing stuff so I can be closer to God. One of the things that, especially this time of year, I mean, California right now, we're being poured on, right? We got floods and everything. But one of the most interesting things is about trees, is that every fall, right before the cold winter approaches, I'm thinking like in the frozen states, right? Cold winter approaches, what do? They let go of their leaves effortlessly. And the reason why they do that is if they don't, they won't survive the snowstorms and the rainstorms and the cold air of the winter. But also helps the tree reach its potential and growth. You know, they do not fight whether they should or shouldn't do it. Or maybe I can't hold on to, I want to hold on to these this winter and see what happens. They let go of them without regrets. They lose every single one of their attachments, yet they're still the same tree, growing taller and more beautiful. So by letting go of their leaves, not only do they survive, they become stronger. They experience a new growth and have a fresh start. It's, and like a tree shedding its leaves, when we're doing 5, 6, and 7 for the exact same reason, we let things go so we can live and survive, right? And we must make room for new growth, releasing old habits, letting go of negative emotions, make room for the things that enlighten our soul, love, forgiveness, joy, stuff like that. I mean, we only want, if a man thinketh, so he becomes. If I'm a resentment, so I become. If I'm a fear, so I become. If I'm envious, so I become. Right? That's how, like the big book says, that type of thinking must be abandoned. This is where we abandon it. So we must blossom to our own true nature. We must let God, the power within us, guide us so we can have survival. And most important, we should never fight or question whether we should or shouldn't, let something go. We let God. That's what it says in here. We'll get more into that. Effortlessly. So let go of the things that no longer serve you, such as unnecessary guilt, resentment, and pain. Let the power within guide you to survival. That will get through the storms of crisis and pain and challenging much easier. But if you don't let go, you'll always be at the mercy of what you're holding on to. Again, stuff's not about losing anything. They're about gaining something. One more thing about trees is for them to live, they must receive what? Water, sun, air. But to reach their full potential again of growth. And they also, most important, there's one more thing. They must always be freed of obstacles such as weeds and rocks and stuff. And we must also have water, sun, and air, but we must also reach our potential, be freed from our obstructions that destroy our mind, body, and spirit. So if these obstacles are not removed, we will always be at the mercy of those. But we believe, the big problem is we believe suffering is we're victimized. We think suffering is holding on to us. We're holding on to it. We're holding on to our obstructions. Only we do that. It's page 75. The heck was that? That looked weird. Once in a while I talk, I got Siri on my computer and I got Google Voice, and once in a while they'd answer a question. I don't know if anyone heard it, but I said go to 75, and it says 75 can't be reached right now or something. Anyways, page 75. So the fifth step is ended. Now, is this fifth step or is the sixth step? Doesn't matter. We'll get more into that. It says returning home. Here's some directions. And don't, if you want your grandma's soup to be grandma's soup, do you change the directions? No, you follow it, even if you don't know half the stuff you're thrown into it, right? But returning home, find a place and be quiet for an hour. Another time frame, hour. Returning home from what? Your fifth step. So we have to do this right after the fifth step. We don't wait and go home and make a pizza. We don't go home and vacuum the house. Right after. Plain so. Now there's might be debate in this interpretation. It may not be your experience. I'm not trying to change your experience and like that. I'm just going to explain mine. And I come from a sponsorship line that was deep into Joe and Charlie, and Joe and Charlie did it this way, and that is the hour spills into step 6. And is the hour part of 5, is it part of 6 type of thing? But my experience is the hour begins in 5, and we follow the directions here, and I'll point them out to you. These questions do not take an hour. This paragraph ends with a question and then states, if you answer the satisfaction, we look at step 6. It doesn't say, now take a break and do it a week later. So basically, if you answer the questions, we look at step 6, you don't stop, right? And but again, it's not the right way or the wrong way or anything like that. It's just the way I experience the steps. I'm not saying to change the way you do. So returning home, find a place, we quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we've done. We thank God from the bottom of our hearts, and we now know him better. Knowing is direct experience with God, like I said. Taking this book down from the shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, right? So now we're getting somewhere. Contains the 12 steps. Carefully reviewing the first 5 proposals, first 5 steps, we've asked if we've omitted anything. Did we leave out anything? Did I forget something? Did I overlook? Should I say that? Should I not? Why? For we're building an arch, we should walk a free man at last. That arch is what we've been building the whole time, and it's a masonry passageway, and it says, which we walk a free man at last. A free man is not restricted. Nothing in this life compares to being free. We've been in our cage too long. There's this amazing story. I won't tell the whole thing, but there's this bird, and it thinks it's a hummingbird, but it's actually a crow. And it flies off in the distance, and he sees the whole world, and he flies everywhere he can go. And he sees the swan at the lake, and he flies down to the swan, and he goes, oh my God, he goes, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And he goes, you're the most beautiful bird in the world. He goes, no, I'm not the most beautiful bird in the world. I'm stuck in this pond. Over the hill is the most beautiful bird in the world. And he gets there, and he gets to there, and it's a parrot, and he's outside its cage, but it's on the windowsill. He goes, oh my God, you're the most beautiful bird in the world, and you can talk, and you speak so clearly. You got 10 different colors. I just got one color. And he goes, thank you that you say I'm beautiful, but I used to think so too. But I'm not the most beautiful bird in the world. My wings are clipped, and I have to go in this cage at night. But go to the zoo around the corner, and you will see the most beautiful bird in the world. So the crow flies down, and he gets to the zoo, and there's thousands of people, and they're crowded around the rainbow. He thinks, as he gets closer, he recognizes it's the peacock, and its feathers are out, and it's all snap, snap, snap pictures. And he waits for everyone to leave, and he walks up to the peacock, and he goes, oh my God, I'm awestruck. I don't even know what to say to you. I've never seen something more beautiful. You are the most beautiful bird in the world. And he goes, I used to think I was the most beautiful bird in the world, but I got to tell you, I'm here all day in this place. I can only go some places. I can't fly and be free. I can't go anywhere I want. So, Mr. Crow, I ask you the question, what is it like to be the most beautiful bird in the world? That's, to me, is freedom. That's what happens to us in step 6. We turn into what we're encoded to be, free, right? This whole book is building something. And step 3, God offer myself to thee to build with me, right? We're building something with God. We agnostics calls it the triumphant arch. We build a spiritual structure. How it works calls the arch, the new triumphant arch, to through which we walk to freedom. I'm going to share the screen and we're going to build this arch. All right, we're building. So you see, I'll move this thing out of the way. So we're going to inspect this arch and what we've done so far. Look for, what does an inspector do? Like a home inspector, they look for damages. They look at the structure and the foundation. They check the top of the structure, the roof, everything, the plumbing, the electrical, the air conditioning, everything's running correctly. Look for insects. We're going to do the same. Is our work solid so far? The first question, that's in the book, especially so with our foundation, step one. Remember the foundation? The whole house rests on the foundation. It's got to be solid. It's built to last forever. Strongest part of a house. Do you believe 100% you're alcoholic? Or do you think maybe I can have a drink and, is there strength in your foundation? Is it solid? The house on the hill, we've seen happen recently with the floods. If the foundation is not built right, they're out on the highway. And are the stones properly in place? So there's 3 stones in here we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about 2 right now. 47 calls it the cornerstone, right? Which is the first stone laid into the foundation to form the new arch. Everything else depends on that. And the 2 of them together make it stronger. Is your cornerstone in place? The next one is the keystone. So everything falls into place there. The keystone, the central stone at the summit of the arch, locking the other pieces in place. What happens if you remove it? It collapses. Is your keystone in place? Right? The next question is, have we skipped on the cement put in our foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Let's look at the other question first. I jumped ahead. Cement in our foundation. I mentioned on 17, the problem, the allergy obsession, common problem it mentions, or parallel, it says, but also mentions a common solution, 4 through 9. Have I withheld anything in 4 and 5? Have I left anything out of my 5th step? Have I tried to make mortar without sand? Have I left something out? Now I'm going to inspect the rest of the arch. I'm going to look at the arch and remove any damages, 6 and 7. I'm going to repair any damages that I can salvage, 8 and 9. Now I need to maintain this arch and grow with it, step 10 and 11, and really get to know it and understand it. Now I live in what I built. The foundation stone of recovery. Page 97 says, helping others is the foundation stone of recovery, and links together makes us whole. That is the essence of the program right there. And Triumphant Arch, which we pass to freedom. I'll put that up in the WhatsApp if you want it. Page 76. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we look at step 6. We have emphasized ones as being indispensable. Are you now ready to let God remove from us all the things we admitted are ejectable? Can you take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, cling to something we'll not let go, we ask God, help us be willing. Now, people often say about this, oh, there's not enough information on 6. Yeah, that's before you do it. They say there's only 66 words. 13 of them are leading questions. If you blink, you miss something. The info isn't, the info here is absolutely perfect. Absolutely. That's all you need. We don't need a ton of info. and questions to face God. Does a caterpillar need any directions to become a butterfly? Maybe just get out of the cocoon. It lets it happen. So let's break this paragraph down. It's very important because this is the most important information in this book. If you can answer to our satisfaction, we look at step 6. That's answering the questions on 75. This is all in the hour. Maybe it's 15 minutes left in the hour, and you finally answer those questions. So you look at these. It tells us that. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Emphasize means to stress importance, right? Indispensable means something that you cannot do without of. Absolutely necessary, something I need to keep. It's interesting because it's the opposite of dispensable, which means to get rid of something, to let it go. Very interesting. Now, here's the most important question you will ever answer in your life. Are you now ready to let God? Let God, let God, let God, right? Remove from us all the things which admitted are objectionable. All the things which you've admitted are objectionable. Pretty powerful. Are you now ready to let God? Let's compare. A lot of people don't see this. And someone pointed out to me years ago, it's quite different than we see up on the wall or on the right in the book. Entire ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Quite different here, because we try ready to let God, not have God, let God remove from us all the things which admit are objectionable. The big difference is let versus have. Let means to allow or permit, right? But it's asking not to get rid of defects of character. I think people try to do this. That's what's written up on the wall or in the page 60, whatever it is. It's here in the book on this page. It's asking me if I'm willing to get rid of everything I've admitted is objectionable. That's a lot of shit. Objectionable is something that one dislikes or opposes, that he breaks, breaks it down, so to speak. Can you now take them, everyone, very deep? So one thing I want to point out to you, and this is kind of where it gets deep, but people think the most important word here is all. It's the word let. I believe the word let is the most important word in the entire book. Maybe the most important word in spiritual words. Let means to allow, permit, allow this to happen. It's the most important word, I believe, in spiritual development. And they're asking us to let God. It's not the first time in the book we hear that. I'm going to fly through these really quick because we got a lot to cover tonight. But if you can keep up with me, great. Just listen. But page 69, God alone can judge our sex situations. Counsel with other persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. Let God be the final judge. A few paragraphs down on page 70, if we're sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we'll be forgiven and have learned our lesson. Page 88. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we just outlined. That's the key to doing step prayer meditation, to let God discipline you in a simple way they just outlined. And then there's one that is truly the bread and butter of the program. I think it's where we wind up in step 11, around 10, 11. But it begins here with step 6, and it's on page 68. We read this a few weeks ago, where it says towards the bottom, we never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. You got to let God do that. And I believe you have to let God remove our defects of character to get there, because the rest of our lives in this program is letting God demonstrate to us what he can do. That's why there is step 10. That's why there is step 11. And removing self, living an altruistic life in step 12. but it's all about letting go and letting God. That's what it's about. Letting God, letting go and letting God involves relinquishing our ego's attachments to fear and resentment. So that's what letting God is. I'm doing that here. I'm letting go of my, relinquishing my ego's job. I'm firing it, so to speak. Meaning you become, remember what makes up the ego is those instincts, and meaning you become one with God and less like the ego. So you can either be a host to God, or you can be a hostage of your ego. And you make, you make always, you can make it always about you, or you can shift and how may I serve? So it's all about being open to everything and attached to nothing. It's about letting go. Remember what page 58 says, some of us have tried to hold on to old ideas and the result was nil till we let go. Absolutely. Meaning don't hold on to what you don't need anymore. Let go. Let go of your thinking so your thinking become one with God's thinking. Let the Spirit guide you. Look what the book says then. Can you now take them all, every one? And then here's a 6-step prayer. If we still cling to something, will not let go, we ask God, help us be willing. Some of this stuff, stuff like resentment, we protected and put away for years. So it's like we take out, oh, I don't resent anybody anymore. Well, can I invite those people over and so you can talk to them? No, because you put it away you put it in your closet up in a box. It's time to let it go and move on. Can you? This brings me to a story. And I'm going to put up the slide here. And some of you have heard me tell this story before. It's one of my favorites. So in Madagascar, one of the highest paying catches you can do, you can get are monkeys. But there's one condition: they can't have any scars or defects, and they have a very unique way to capture the monkeys that leaves no scars. What they do is they take a coconut and they make one little hole, 2 holes next to each other, where they put a rope through it and they tie it to a tree, and one other hole that's just big enough to get the monkey's little hand in the hole. And then what they do is they put a coconut into that hole. I mean, a nut into that hole. And the trapper goes on its day. The monkey comes around and he smells the coconut and he smells the nut inside. And he puts his little hand there to get the nut, but he can't pull his hand out through the hole because he's now holding that nut, right? It cannot get its hand out. So it starts screaming and screaming and screaming, but it won't let go. And the trapper hears the screams and heads back that way, takes his time, because it's never failed. He's even taken an hour to walk back and hears the monkey screaming all the time. The monkey gets louder and louder. He sees a trapper. He's watched this his whole life. All the monkey do is to let go of the nut. There's so much for him to live for too. The female monkeys up there, the bananas, the beautiful jungle. Total freedom. The trapper throws a bag over the monkey's head, game over. All because it wouldn't let go. Sometimes they'll put, and this is true, they'll put 10 coconuts around a hole, around a tree. And then the trapper will go around for the whole day and come back in a day and there's 10 monkeys with their hands stuck in coconuts. Now, you think about that. These monkeys have been watching this trick their whole life. They know it works. And then one monkey watches one monkey get his hand stuck and the next one does it again and again. That's the picture. I'm not letting go. You say, well, those stupid monkeys, right? If they just let go, they could be free. Are we any different? We are unwilling to let go of what's trapped us, anger, an anger called resentment. And we say, oh, I don't have resentment anymore, but I'm going to tell my husband or wife what to do all the time, or whatever. But we hold on to it even though it works against us, just like the monkey sees, others making the same foolish mistakes. We stay, doing the same thing. We look just as stupid as a monkey. We hold on to something even though it has no value at all. we have to let go. It's like, think of the hot air balloon. How does it take off? Right? How does it take off? You take the sandbag and you throw it out and it goes, right? Takes off. We must go deep, leave no stone unturned. It's like if you take a basketball 3 feet under water, barely shoots up, but take it 80 feet underwater, 100 feet, 200 feet, and shoot it up. It's going to fire out like a cannon. That's what happens to us. And resentments are very hard to let go of. And I want to mention this about step 6, and not people mention this a lot. Maybe some of those resentments, maybe we got hurt, maybe destroyed, maybe we were violated, cheated on, stole from, robbed, or whatever. We must stop and let go. And Bill does not mention forgiveness in 6 and 7. But he does mention we go to men's in the spirit of forgiveness, meaning forgiveness must have already happened. Is Bill tricking us into forgiveness in steps 6 and 7? Well, you can't let go of resentment without forgiving. Even if you don't use the word forgiveness and let go, it's happened. It's letting go of the past, releasing anger and hatred and bitterness, suffering. It's not for the other person, it's for you. And it's it does not mean we agree with what the person did. It's freeing ourselves from continuing to suffer. By not forgiving, the person who wronged us will always continue to inflict pain on us the rest of our lives. Remember what St. Francis prayer says is by forgiving that we are forgiven. One more thing. It says, that I want to point out is we go to, when we make amends in the spirit of forgiveness, if you don't feel that way, you haven't forgiven the person, and you have to go and look at step 6 again and go back to that prayer that I mentioned. I want to compare the first 5 steps, and this is an easy way to understand it all, to climbing a mountain. So I need to get to Freedom Valley, which is over yonder, right? And but the problem, after a 4-day, 8-day walk, there's a mountain in the way. I can go, just like the other thing I mentioned at the beginning, I can go around it, I can dig under it, I can pretend it's not there, I can go home and forget about it, I can run away. Or I can but to overcome it, the mountain, I must climb it. So the problem is what? The mountain, just like step 1. So I need to climb. So what do I need to do? Climb the mountain, just like step 2. Pain and believe, power greater than myself, can restore my sanity. 2 the steps is what it's saying. Make a decision to climb the mountain or not climb the mountain, just like step 3, make sure to do the steps or not. The question is, when does a person start climbing the mountain? When they stick the spike in there, when the pen hits the paper, step 4. And we go to work climbing that mountain. It's agonizing. We get scraped up. We don't like it. We complain to our sponsors about the stuff we're writing down, just like step 5, just like step 4. But somewhere within 4 and 5, all of a sudden it starts getting smooth. I can start walking and moving around, right? I can start going forward, right? And hold on one second. Sorry, my kid was yelling in the background. So the thing about it is, I need to know how to climb, and I get that rhythm in step 5, and all of a sudden I'm at the top. I've reached the summit, the paramount. That's 6 and 7. Now, you see one thing, I did every step for the ability to do 6 and 7. I did every one of those steps to get to the top of the mountain. But it's not only the top, it's the edge. And the only thing left to do is leap off. And the question is, when and how do we know it's time to leap? As I get closer and I look down the edge, I see the other side. I realize this is a leaping out point. There's no going back. And here's the condition before I leap. I must leave behind everything I brought to the top with me. That's when I realized this is not a game and it's real. And when I get down to Freedomville, guess what? I know why I went there and why I need to be there. I need to become willing to make amends. Step 8, I make amends to those people, right? I make the trip again in step 10. I study the meaning of it all, right? And more in step 11. And when I make it again, the trip over, I'm going to bring some of you guys with me, just like step 12. Most people never get to step 6 because they get distracted on the way to the top. It's a big question in step 6 is, what's it about? Surrender. There's 2 surrenders in the program. And we know it's step 1 is a main defeat, right? All rights to the conqueror, the allergy obsession. Most people will say it's 3. 3 is only a decision. The other one is step 6. I do 4 and 5 for the only reason to do step 6. It's about surrendering to God and giving up control. Letting go, letting God. I can't, he can, I must let him. Ultimate trust. I am trusting God with my life and handing it over to him. I abandon myself to God. So surrender to what is, let go of what was, have faith in what will be. Let go, let God, right? So with this surrender is genuine. You don't know what's happened next. I mean, your past history and all of the hurts and anguish are no longer your physical reality. And when you are in that pure state, you feel swept away and say, why did I wait for so long to do this? Why did it take me so long? Because we held on to our old ways for so long. Yeah, one of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz. Many of you, I think all of us have seen it in here. So we know the story. I don't have to explain it to you. Dorothy learns a surprising truth about the Good Witch, that the power to get back to Kansas had actually been with her all along. The ruby shoes, right? The shoes she had, she was wearing. And the Scarecrow gets pissed off and says to the Good Witch, why didn't you give her this critical information earlier? And the Good Witch laughed and says, because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn for herself. Meaning you can't learn step 6 by telling someone about it, studying it, reading about it, going to groups, talking about it, even this group. It must be experienced. It is only achieved by letting go and letting God. It is then we realize what we've always had. We'll look at step 7. A little bit longer tonight than normal, but it's a good payoff. Some cool stuff left. Step 7. Now, just a lot of people get confused with step 7. Humbly, the shortest step of them all, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Step 7 is the easiest step there is, because it's just an affirmative prayer of what we just did in step 6. Step 6 does all the work. All the magic is there. Humble means marked by meekness and modesty, as opposed to being prideful and arrogant. So humility is an action word, meaning one must take the action to achieve it. Every step has humility. Admitting defeat, knowing you need power, making a decision, inventory of defects, admitting it to another, asking God, letting God remove them, making right with others, doing 14 as a way of life when things crop up. Talking and listening to God, and take another on the same journey in 12. See, humility gives us the ability to recognize. I'm going to turn this thing off. I don't need it up in there. So humility gives us the ability to recognize our strengths and limitations, and to be honest and respectful and teachable. And most of all, it awakens our life to love, kindness, and compassion. So it gives us the ability to see ourselves as not better than, or looking down on others. Instead, we recognize others' qualities and talents. So plain and simple, humility is understanding who you are before God. It takes a deep humility to see what stands between you and God. It takes even more to let go. That's when we realize that God has always been with us and how blind I've been. And then we know who we truly are. And what do we discover through humility? I'm not dumb. I'm not smart. I'm not a winner. I'm not a loser. I'm not ugly. I'm not, I'm not good. I'm not ugly or good looking. I'm not right or wrong. Not first or last. I'm Steve. I am not flawless, nor I am the most important object in the universe. Humility has shown me that I am very finite, limited, and that God is infinite. But what I love about seven-step prayer, it says, God will take all of me, good and bad. My whole life, I thought that you couldn't go to God unless I was being good or perfect, and I would be struck down if I went there. Here's my bad stuff, God. I didn't think I have to be, a good person. I didn't know I could be a bad person to have God. Bring my imperfections. The seventh step is just a simple prayer that completes the third step prayer. That's why the seventh step prayer is amen, and third step prayer does not. So in essence, 3 to 7 is 4, 5, 6, and 7 is all one long prayer. It's praying with your feet. The action part's in there, praying with our feet. We pray and we start walking and do the work. And when we take the necessary action to rediscover life, we discover a whole new world. That's the thing. The more we let go and surrender, the more we discover. The more we let go and surrender, the more we discover. The more we let go, without thought or effort eventually. And that's why we have experiences in step 6. Because when we let go, we shift away from the ego, and it's built in insecurities and negative emotions. And that leads us in a place called inner peace. Kind of like going through a vortex or a matrix, so to speak, into spiritual awakening, like the butterfly breaking into atoms. It's a matter of seconds. The complexion of the universe will change. It changes so much, but that sometimes you say, I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like I'm going the right places. Because you're finally living effortlessly in that, what you were so blown away of 6 months or 9 months ago. So we turn us to our true nature with a new outlook of the entire universe. We start asking and knowing life's greatest questions. Like, what am I? That's an external question. I'm a father, I'm a dad, husband, sponsor, friend. Who am I? It's an internal question. Awake, loving, peaceful, and the one that is different for everybody. Why am I here? Now, do you see why I always say the steps are not about getting anything, they're about losing stuff? So I can be closer to God. When people hear amazing 6-step stuff at meetings, people are like, talk about a 6-step experience where some guy saw some vision and he's telling it, and you get the normal meeting makers, and they're like, they almost look like that someone's cooking bad food in front of them or something. They're like, huh? And they're like, come on, that's weird. Oh my God, what's this guy on taking too much acid or something? They think, But when someone says that they have yet to experience 6 and God, all they have is theory. Why? Because they're speaking butterfly language to a caterpillar, right? And speaking of the butterfly, I'm gonna just tell this story that kind of sums everything up really well. It's a beautiful story. So one day a young boy goes to his guru who's sitting at the top of a hill and looking at something in his hand. The young boy asks, "What's in your hand?" The guru says, it's a cocoon. Soon it will split and open to a butterfly. Open and be a butterfly. The little boy is like, what? He's so thrilled about it. He asks if he can have it and take it home. The guru says, sure, but you must give me one promise. When the cocoon splits and the butterfly emerges, you can't help it. It must do it on its own. The boy, I won't do it. I'll take it home and put it in a jar and watch it. And he does just that. When he's watching it in a jar, it begins to vibrate and move. And finally, the cocoon opens and the butterfly slides out. But it doesn't look like a butterfly. It looks wounded. He's all, wet and stuff, but he's kind of still stuck in the cocoon. He's not all the way out yet. And he's frantically beating its wings on the cocoon like he's stuck, trying to break free. The boy, after watching it for like an hour, gets concerned and gets a pair of scissors and he snips open the cocoon and the butterfly falls out. Its swollen body, shivers, it starts shivering. And he watches it expecting him to fly and the wings to drop and be beautiful. Instead, it falls to the ground and is dead. With tears in his eye, the little boy returns to the dead butterfly to his guru. And the guru says, "You cut open the cocoon, didn't you?" He goes, "Yes, I did." The guru says, "It's okay. You didn't understand what you were doing." When a butterfly comes out of the cocoon, the only way for it to have strength, to strengthen and live, it is and have power in its wings is by beating them against the cocoon. It is supposed to have the struggle. It beats against the cocoon so its muscles can grow. The struggle to emerge from the cocoon strains its wings. And without that struggle, it will never fly. When you helped it, you prevented it from developing what it needed to survive. The message to the story is that the struggle was that the butterfly needed to do in order to fly. Without the struggle, the butterfly is destined to crawl around and die. So what does that have to do with what we just talked about? And this is from a sponsor's perspective. As sponsors, when a sponsee is doing 6 and 7 and goes their hour and goes in that cocoon, let them struggle with what they're going to do before they go in. Don't tell them. Let them figure it out, what happens to them. And just because they say nothing happened, or they didn't feel it, or they can't put it into words, does not mean you need to explain it to them. What happened and what should have happened. That would be cutting open the cocoon. For some, having a new experience is a little bit of struggle figuring it out. You can't convince them that they had a spiritual awakening. Just give them the directions in this book and let the magic happen. Let the magic happen. It's their experience and not yours. And if someone else told you, here's what's going to happen, could you fly? Our job is not to do their work. That's theirs. Our job is to not give them the explanation that, or our job is not to give them the experience. That's God's job. Our job is to stand by with love and a hug, I guess. Remember, in the end, what matters most, how well did I live? How well did I love? How well did I let go? And when you live that way, it will be your time to rise and fly, just like that butterfly. It's an old saying we've heard again and again. You give a person a fish to eat for a day, teach a person a fish to eat for a lifetime. Are you tired of eating fish for once a day? Before I did step 6, it was all about, going to meetings and eating fish. 6 and 7 is where we learn to fish. It's a game changer. It's another saying that I like to point out to people is that, we always heard there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is near. But after waiting and waiting and waiting for the light, we begin to believe that it's an illusion and we abandon it. In step 6, we discover something. I discovered something, and others have heard mention this too. The light was never the illusion. The tunnel was the illusion all along. It's always been and always will be. All our defects, all our shortcomings were just illusions. The tunnel was always the illusion, not the light. Follow the light and be set free. Let's close with the meditation like we did in the beginning. Just we're going to float here for a second. We're going to do some letting go. So it's impossible to know how it feels to let go until you muster the strength to do it. A lot of us like a safe pond that we can swim in and never leave. So we never know what it's like to venture out of it and find the ocean. I want you to focus on something you will not let go of. Perhaps you hold on to it pretty tightly. Maybe it's a resentment towards your father or mother. Maybe it's a fear such as believing you're not good enough. Guilt over a past harm. Deep-seated resentment. one that you just struggle to let go of. It's about letting go of your blocks. Just drop them and be free. Let go of your anger, your thoughts of revenge, your fear, your harm, your shame. I mean, your hurt, your guilt, your shame. The need to be right. Let go of what no longer serves you. The pain. All those old ideas, they're all old ideas. They're not new. They're limiting. So let go of what's limiting you. Let go of what's blocking you from peace. And simply, effortlessly surrender. Know that whatever you are suffering from, you don't have to be in that prison anymore. Focus on letting go. Focus. Focus. Know that by letting go, a part of us dies, but it shifts us to a new universe called peace of mind. Put yourself in that peace. See what it looks like. How beautiful it is. Our worst wounds are never inside of us. I mean, not outside of us. We bleed internally. And when we stop that bleeding, there's peace. Surrender is saying yes to life rather than letting life work against us. And the question is not whether or not we should let go and let God. The real question is, how free do I want to be? Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be free? When ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that now you remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out here and do your bidding. Amen.